Okay, we're at chapter 6-6, practice finding percents. We're just going to go ahead and get right to it. Number 1, we have 10% of 812. We go up to the chart and we find 10%, that's 1 over 10, times 812 over 1. We got our fraction now. Let's go ahead and simplify before we multiply. Now, basically, watch this. If you divide by 10 on both sides, this one gets 1, and you divide by 10 here, watch this. We're into this setting now where we should just know real simple things like divided by 10 divided by 100. Divided by 10 is one decimal jump to the left, 81.2. Okay? So 1 times 81.2 equals 81.2, and on the bottom, 1 times 1 is 1. So your answer is 81.2. Okay? Number 3, we have 40% of 25. We go to the chart on the other side of the paper. 40% is 2/5. So we're going to write 2/5 of 25 over 1. Now we're ready to go. I think we can simplify before we multiply. If we divide both those numbers by 5, this one is 1. 25 divided by 5 is 5. Okay? We'll try that again. 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 25 divided by 5 is 5. Okay? 2 times 5 equals 10. 1 times 1 equals 1. So your answer is simply 10. Okay, number 5. We're going to go to number 5. We have 62.5% of, or times 62.5% of 80. And we look at 62.5%. That's 5 over 8, right? On the chart? Yes, 5 over 8 times 80 over 1. So 5/8 of 80 over 1. Let's simplify before we multiply. Divide both those by 8. You get 1 here, and 80 divided by 8 is 10. So we multiply. Draw your arcs. 5 times 10 is 50. 1 times 1 equals 1. And your answer is simply 50. Okay? Number 7, we have 30% of 400. So we look at the chart. 3 over 10. That's 30% of 400 over 1. Simplify before you multiply. 10 divided by 10 is 1, and 400 divided by 10, just one decimal jump to the left, you get 40. So draw your arcs. 3 times 40 is 120, and 1 times 1 is 1. So your answer is 120. Let's move on to number 9. We have 16 2/3% of 72. So we look at 16 2/3%. That's 1/6. Okay? So we're going to write 1/6 of 72 over 1. Okay, let's see if we can simplify before we multiply. 6 divided by 6 is 1, and 72 divided by 6 happens to be 12, if you know your math facts. Okay? Draw your arcs. 1 times 12 equals 12, and 1 times 1 equals 1. So the answer is 12. Okay? Let's move to number 11. We have 60% of 2,500. Okay? We look on the chart for 60%. That's 3/5. Okay? 3/5 of 2,500 over 1. We're going to simplify before we multiply. 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 2,500 divided by 5 happens to be 500. Okay? Okay, draw your arcs. 3 times 500 is 1,500. 1 times 1 is 1, so your answer is 1,500. Moving on to number 13, we have 25% of 244. Or, if you look at the chart, 25% is 1/4 of 244 over 1. Let's see if we can simplify before we multiply. 4 divided by 4 is 1. And let's see what 244 divided by 4 is. Okay, I got to the decimal, to the end. So it looks like When I simplify this diagonal, I get 1 on the lower hand corner and I get 61 here. So I'm going to draw my arcs now. 1 times 61 is 61, and 1 times 1 is 1. So the answer, 61. Okay? Move on to number 15. We have 150% of 260. Now, if I look on the chart, 100% is 1, and 50% is 1/2. So it'll be 1 and 1/2. 150% is 1 and 1/2 of 260 over 1. Okay? So 1 and 1/2 of 260 over 1. Let's go ahead and change this mixed number because we cannot multiply by a mixed number. 1 times 2 is 2, plus 1 makes 3 over 2, times 260 over 1. I can simplify this diagonal. Okay? 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 260 divided by 2 is 130. So I'm going to draw my arcs now and multiply. Okay? 3 times 130 happens to be 390. And 1 times 1 is 1. So the answer, 390. All right, we're going to go to new rules now on 17. All right, this should actually be fairly easy. I'm gonna give you the estimations from the book. The estimations can be off. It's really up to you, and I'll show you how. 17. It says 65% of 83. Now you may not see that in the chart. So find the closest thing. So I have 65% of 83. All right. Now watch. Go back to the chart and find the closest thing in the chart to 65%. The closest to 65% would be 66 2/3%. So choose that one. What does 66 2/3% show? 2/3 of 83. Now, one person would round to 80, or another person might think 100 if you're estimating. The book chose 81. So if you round to 81, I'll show you why they did. 81 over 1. They're just estimating instead of 83. It's easier to simplify before you multiply here, okay? Because you can divide both of these by 3, okay? Now watch. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 81 divided by 3, let's find out. 2 times 3 is 6, okay? And you get 21. So they're thinking this would simplify to 27. And some people think it's easier to just go 2 times 27, which is 54 over 1. Okay, so that would equal 54. Now there's a number of ways you can do it. I'm going to show you how I would have done it. Alright, so the book says the answer is 54, but I want to show you what I would have done. I would have just gone 70%. I would have just rounded 70% of 80. Okay? So if you look on the chart for 70%, you get 7/10 of 80 over 1. Simplify before you multiply. This becomes 1, and this becomes 8. Okay? 7 times 8 equals 56 over 1 equals 56. And look at how close my answer is. That's the book answer, and that's just the way I would have done it. Okay? So either way, let's go to 19. All right? They're asking 32% of 26. Okay, now what I would have done is I would have just said 30% of 30. Okay, that would have been my estimation. And let's see what that would get. 30% is 3/10 of 30 over 1. This simplifies to 1. 30 divided by 10 is 3. So I would just get 9 over 1, or 9. Okay, so I'm going to put my answer right here. And let's go ahead and see what the book got. Okay, the book estimates 32%. If you go to the chart, the closest thing would be 33 1/3%. So they chose 33 1/3%. And what is that? That's 1/3 of. Now, they chose to round 26 to 27 because they think that if you simplify here, it's a lot easier. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 27 divided by 3 is 9. So 1 times 9 equals 9. 1 times 1 equals 1. Now look, Either way, you get 9. Okay? So you can use the video as an example for whichever one you want to do. Number 21. We're looking at 22% of 536. Now, the way I would have done it, I would have just said 20% of basically 500. So if you look on the chart for 20%, that's 1 over 5 of 500 over 1. And simplify before you multiply. 5 divided by 5 is 1. And 500 divided by 5 is 100. Okay, draw your arcs. 1 times 100 is 100. 1 times 1 is 1. Your answer is 100. Okay? Alright, let's go to 23. 11% of 29. Okay, I would have chosen 10% of basically 30. Okay, so you look at 10% and you see 1/10 of 30 over 1. Simplify. 10 divided by 10 is 1, and 30 divided by 10 is 3. Draw your arcs. 1 times 3 is 3, and 1 times 1 is 1. So you get 3 for an answer. Okay. Alright. Moving on to 25. You have 21% of 18. Okay? Now basically, I would just say 20% of 20. Just rounding them both ways. So 20 would be 1/5. 20% is 1/5 of 20 over 1. And you divide by 5 on both sides. You get 1 and 4 there. So draw your arcs. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 1 is 1. And you get an answer of 4. Okay? 27. 8% of 1008. Okay? Now basically this is 10%. So I would just estimate 10% of 1,000. Okay? If you look at the 10% chart, you get 1 over 10 of 1,000 over 1. Okay? When we're dealing with zeros here, you can cross multiply just crossing 1 0 out. So you're basically at 1 in 100. So 1 times 100 equals 100, and 1 times 1 equals 1. So your answer is 100. If you go to 29, you have 1/6% of 567. Okay? 1/6% of 567. Okay, 1/6%. If I look on the board at all, I don't even know what I would do. So I would go back to this rule. 1/6%. How do we get that percent off? Well, this is what I was showing in 6-4. 1/6. How do you want to get the percent off? Times 1 over 100. Because you're dividing by 100, and that moves the decimal left twice. But since you can't tell where the decimal is right there, just multiply it times 1 over 100. What do you get? 1 times 1 is 1, and 6 times 100 is 600. Okay? So you're basically looking at 1/600th of 567 over 1. Now we're looking for estimations though, so I'm looking at this number. What's 567 closest to? 600. So let's just estimate that to be 600. Okay? Now you got 1 over 600 times 600 over 1. Simplify. Divide both by 600. You get 1 on each one. So 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 1 is 1. And 1 over 1 is 1. Okay, so your answer is 1. 31. You have 210% of 425. Okay? You want to get that percent off? Take it off and move the decimal left 1, 2. You get 2.1 times 425. Now basically, if you estimate, 2.1 is just 2 times 400. Because you're estimating 425. So what do you get? 800. That's your estimated answer. Okay? Alright, let's look at 33. 689% of 2,981. Well, let's round 689%. Let's just go 700% of 3,000. Isn't that a little bit easier to deal with? Okay, take the percent sign off and move it back, move the decimal back, so you just get 7 times 3,000. Okay? And what do you get? Well, 7 times 3 is 21. With the 3 zeros makes 21,000. So that's your answer. 21,000. Okay? Just a little bit of help on 30. Okay? On 30, I'm going to show you something real quick. For number 30, you have 2/3%. Okay? If you want to take that percent off, just times 1 over 100. So it'll be 2/3 times 1 over 100. So you'll get 2 over 300. Okay? Which is 1 over 150. Okay, so that'll help you figure out what you want to do with number 30. Okay, let's go to number 35. There is no 35, so let's do 34, the word problem. Okay? Alright. Last week, a waitress made $204 in tips. $204 in tips. This week, this was last week, okay? This week, she made 135% of that, which is 204. Okay? How much did she make this week? So let's just go 135% times 204. Take the percent off, move the decimal back twice, you get 1.35 times 204. Let's see what that is. 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 0 is 0, plus 2 is 2. 5 times 2 is 10. Let's put a 0. Okay. And 3 times 4 is 12. And that goes 1. 3 times 2 is 6. Put 2 zeros now. 4, 0, 2. Let's add them together. 0, 4, 5, 7, and 2. How many numbers behind the decimal in the problem? 1, 2. So there's 2 there in the answer. 275.40. Or just 275.4. But if you want to know how much money she made this week, she made 135% of $204. So she made the $204, which is 100% of that, plus a little bit more. So she made a total this week of $275.40 this week. Okay? Alright, that finishes up 6-6 practice on the odds with the word problem. So you should be more than ready to go with the evens.